What's in a name? You see them everywhere, on street signs, on buildings, on local businesses. We usually walk right past them without a second thought. But sometimes, a single name can tell a story that stretches back, well, 1,000 years. And today, we're going to dig into one of those stories.
So, if you've ever been to the seaside town of Sidmouth over in Devon, England, you might have seen the Radway Cinema, or maybe the Radway Inn. The name just sounds like it belongs there, like it's been there forever, right? But where did it actually come from? Was it a person, a place, some big event? That's the mystery we're going to unravel today.
Yup, today we are peeling back the layers of history on just one plot of land, using that one name, Radway, as our guide. We're going to travel backwards in time, starting with the fancy seaside villas you can see today, and go all the way back, all the way to the ancient forest that once covered this entire valley.
Now, our journey starts, funnily enough, kind of near the end of the story. We're in the Regency era, the early 1800s. This is when Sidmouth basically blew up, going from a quiet little fishing village to a super fashionable resort. And it's when the town we see today really started to take shape. It all kicked off with the breakup of this one massive farm estate.
This whole transformation, it really boils down to two main guys. First up, you've got James Templar. He was an industrialist, made his fortune in canals and dockyards, and he bought the entire Radway farm estate as a big investment. Then you have Sir John Kennaway. He was a wealthy landowner who started buying up parcels of that land from Templar's family. Kennaway was the real developer here. He chopped up the land into smaller plots and sold them with super strict rules to make sure only stylish, fancy villas got built.
And we know exactly how this all went down, thanks to the diaries of a local historian, a guy named Peter Orlando Hutchinson. He wrote down everything. He actually recorded one of these sales, a plot of land, once just part of the farm, being sold to build this elegant home for a man named Sir John Floyd. And this was happening all over the old estate, just piece by piece.
Okay, so that explains the fancy villas. But what about that giant farm they were all built on? Let's go to the next layer in our historical dig and see how this all connects back to that mysterious name, Radway.
The real turning point for the old estate, it all comes down to one guy, a man named John Bawley. He was the very last person in a very, very long family line to own Radway as one single massive farm. When he died back in 1779, his daughters decided to sell it off, and that's how the industrialist James Templar got his hands on it. John Bawley's death really was the end of an era.
And we're talking about a long era here. The family line that John Ballin was part of had owned the Radway estate for over 500 years. Can you imagine? They first got that land way, way back in the year 1215. So this must have been the Radway family, right? Well, not exactly.
See, back in the Middle Ages, they did things a little differently. Surnames weren't really fixed like they are for us. It was pretty common that if you got a big piece of land, you'd just take your name from the land itself. So imagine this. A guy, let's call him William, gets the deed to a plot of land called Radway. Well, pretty soon, he's known as William de Radway, which just means William of Radway. The family didn't name the land named the family.
Which, of course, brings us right back to the big mystery. We know the family was named after the land, but what was the land named after? What does Radway actually mean?
Okay, you ready for this? The answer was literally in the ground the whole time. The name comes from two Old English words, reed, which means red, and weg, which is a word for a path or a road. Radway simply means the red road. It was named for a path that cut right through the really distinct red sandstone soil of the Sid Valley. All that history, all those people, and it all comes back to the color of a dirt path. How wild is that?
But wait, we're not done yet. We can go even deeper. What was this land before William de Radway made it his family estate back in 1215? Let's dig down to the next level, the time of the Norman conquest. So if you look at the Doomsday Book from 1086, the area isn't called Sidmouth, it's written down as Seta Muda, which just means mouth of the River Sid. And the land wasn't a private estate at all, it was part of this huge manor that had been gifted to Benedictine monks all the way over at the famous abbey of Mont Saint-Michel in France. And this explains a fascinating little detail. The first owners, William and Robert de Radway, were actually connected to the monastery. They were probably working as administrators for the monks before they eventually got the land for themselves.
So we've gone from fancy villas to a family estate to a massive manor run by French monks. There's only one place left to go. What was here before any of that? Before the manors, before the Doomsday Book, before written history?
Before all of it, this whole valley was covered in what historians call the wildwood, just this dense, ancient forest.
And this timeline shows how it disappeared. It started changing over 5,000 years ago, when the first farmers began clearing patches of land with stone axes. Then came Bronze Age tools, and finally, around 800 BC, the real game changer, the iron-tipped plow, which just chewed through the forest to create all that farmland we've been talking about.
And the scale of this change, it was just staggering. By 500 BC, it's possible that as much as half of all of England's original woodland was already gone, cleared away for farms. So that red road wasn't a path cut through some deep, dark forest, but through a farming landscape that was already ancient by then.
So just think about that journey for a second. A single piece of land starts as wildwood. It gets cleared for farming. Then it's organized into a Norman manor. Then it becomes a family estate for 500 years, before, finally, it's broken up and sold off for fashionable villas. Every single one of those layers of history is still there, just buried right under the surface.
And that really leaves us with one last thought, doesn't it? The story of Radway, it isn't some unique, one-off thing. Every town, every city, every single street has a similar story buried beneath it, a whole history hidden in plain sight. So the next time you're walking around and you see an old place name, maybe just ask yourself, what story is buried right here?